Hello, builders. It is our privilege to welcome you to this episode of the Build Your Success podcast. I'm your host, Brian Brogan. Here at the Build Your Success podcast, we like to build you so you can build others. We do that through our coaching, training, and speaking events, but we also do that with guests we bring to the program. I'm glad to have my newfound friend from across the pond, Gavin Coyle, here today. Gavin is a founder, author, podcast host, and many other things that I'm going to let him tell you a little more about. But welcome to the podcast today, Gavin.
Hey Brian, I'm delighted to be here today, all the way from Dublin, Ireland, and it's a pleasure to be on your show. And hello to all the listeners across the water. Um, and yeah, really excited to get going and having some insights into the world of safety and construction.
Absolutely. So, first of all, give us a little background. How did you get involved in construction and what do you do today?
So yeah, I came straight out of school, straight into construction, pretty much. And at the time on the project I was on, it was actually Hewlett Packard, the computer company, was building a large scale, hyperscale project in Ireland, and probably didn't realize it at the time, but there was a major shift of US multinational companies coming into Ireland and using Ireland both as a land base to get into Europe or to step into Europe, but also, as we know now, the tax advantages of doing business in Ireland was very attractive, and the government made a very concerted effort to attract the likes of Intel, Pfizer's as it is now, and all these massive pharmaceutical and digital companies or tech companies, and that continues today. Like the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn, and all the top software guys are in Dublin, and they use Dublin both from a labour point of view. There's great advantages, and then also access into Europe. And I suppose I was at the forefront of that on construction. But as a young guy, 17 years of age, I didn't know that that was the bigger, wider picture going on at the time. I just thought, oh my God, look at the size of this building. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I got a tap on the shoulder and they said, look, basically, there's a safety meeting here, health and safety, and you're the health and safety officer. And I said, well, I know nothing about health and safety. And they said, well, you're just out of school. There's a bit of administration work to it. And we're too busy to be going to these meetings. But the client and the American client insists that every contractor has a health and safety representative. And we're making you that representative, no qualifications. And to be honest with you, health and safety in Ireland wasn't bad, but it was pretty behind the times. And I suppose all these multinationals were bringing models of what they expected contractors to have. And I suppose it was a learning curve for all the construction companies in Ireland that they had to get up to speed, because obviously these companies didn't want to have a reputational damage on their hands. They were trying to come in clean cut, and they just wanted to get the up and running and get manufacturing moving. So yeah, I fell into health and safety, if that's the word or phrase to use it, and stayed with that company for 10 years. And yeah, I ended up doing a degree and masters in health and safety, and eventually went out on my own. But in the very early days of that business, we did lose a young guy who fell headfirst into a sump hole, and I was on that job that day, helping to carry him out of the hole and into the ambulance, and went with him to the hospital, where unfortunately he lost his life. Uh, so I suppose I got a very quick introduction to the harsh reality of health and safety, that it's not just pushing paper and having conversations, that there's real people here that can get catastrophic events can happen to them, and trauma for families and workers. And I suppose I learned a lot about myself personally in terms of, can I deal with this type of environment, or is it better just to go to work, become a chippy or electrician and just do your bit and go home. And so, in around the same time, my brother had a tragic drowning accident where himself and two of his friends had drowned in the Atlantic Ocean. They were at the beach, and a freak wave came in and brought them out to sea. So I had a personal tragedy and I had a career tragedy in the space of 24 months or in around that. And um, I had to have very serious conversations about, did I want to stay in safety? Because even though it was a personal tragedy, there was still a safety element involved in it. But I put the head down and said, no, this is for me. And, you know, I want to make it, I want to make a career out of this. And so today, I have a very successful organization that sends health and safety professionals all over the world to manage high risk projects. And um, that's what we do in the utility and energy sector. And we do some construction engineering projects as well, but they're high end, high scale projects.
Gavin, as you tell your history and background in construction, and then how you got into safety, that tragic incident, and then the loss of your brother, both of those tragedies, I know they've given you some empathy. I learned from one of your other podcasts where you talked
Yeah.
about how you became empathetic with that. And I want to talk about the book you wrote as a result of that, and now you also have a podcast. Before we do that, I want to ask you the question we ask all of our guests. What does
Yes.
leadership and being a leader mean to Gavin Coyle?
Leadership for me is being a motivator of people to get the desired outcome. And that desired outcome is that everybody gets value on the table. And that's not just in monetary terms, but it's also in the fact that you want to go to work because you're jumping out of bed and you love that job. You love the business, you love the culture, you love the people you're working with, you love the clients you work with. And it's not work. It's just a pleasure to be there.
That is so good. Adding value and helping others gain value, I think, is a great attribute of leadership. Thank you for
Yeah,
that. As you
you're
talked
welcome.
about kind of getting thrown into that safety role, it reminded me how I kind of got thrown into a sales or business development role. I had worked a night shift at Disney World in Orlando here, and
Very good.
somebody at the office called and said, "Hey, after night shift, can you go pick up a set of drawing?" This is what I heard. They probably told me more than this after I got to the meeting and realized it, but I thought they wanted me to pick up a set of drawings. So here comes Brian after working a third shift at Disney World, because they work, after the guests leave at 11, we get to go in and do some work and then be out of the park by 8 o'clock in the morning so they can open up. And here I go. I'm in my denim shirt, denim blue jeans, work boots, and I knock on this door over at Disney and I ask, "Hey, I'm here to pick up a set of plans." Well, they said, "You have to sit through the pre-bid meeting to get those plans." So that was my first exposure to a pre-bid meeting. Most of the other people there were, dressed in business casual, and here I am in my work uniform. And it was an exposure. I'm glad I got that opportunity, but again, I was thrown
Yeah,
into that. I had no idea what it really
yeah,
meant to sit in a pre-bid and get the plans and specifications and all the things, scope of work necessary to
yeah.
propose a job. So, hey, kudos to us getting thrown into these things and then growing that.
But Brian, and you'll resonate with this. Construction projects are like little cities with lots of different personalities, loads of different languages, lots of different, cultures, and loads of different roles. And there's no better place to be than a major construction project or any construction project, because it's just a massive knowledge center of loads of things that are happening. And for people that feel probably disenfranchised or maybe not respected, or people that feel that they've no way out to make a living for themselves, there's no better place than construction to get involved. The barriers aren't as high, uh, because some people just don't want to do that work, or they don't want to do the heavy lifting, and they don't want to get dirty, and they don't want to be out in the rain till like 2 o'clock in the morning, directing traffic or whatever it is. But I love the construction industry for, for what it is. It's a great opportunity for anybody, and I think we should do more to try and encourage more and more people into the industry.
Absolutely, Gavin. There's so much opportunity. And, a lot of corporations and even education today has put a major focus on collaboration and collaborative efforts. And I would say in the construction industry, we've been doing that a long time. We collaborate with
Yeah,
trades, other contractors, owners. A job site, as you alluded to, is very diverse and people with different backgrounds, experiences. A lot of the
yeah,
power plant job sites I worked on, they were international. The heavy, massive equipment was coming from overseas, and they sent a team of people to guide us and help us put this equipment together.
yeah,
These technical field advisors and engineers, and we had to
yeah,
learn, some different. In fact, you have some language that's not common to us in America, and on the job sites there was things like that. In fact, I remember an English crew that they wanted a podger and a spanner wrench, and I had no idea what either of those two things were, and had to learn that.
yeah. That's true. I love it. I love it, and it's the other thing is, you can travel around the world, and you're not defined by your environment that you grew up in. If you want to get out of where you are and you want to travel the world, construction can bring you around the world.
Yes, absolutely. And I heard you say you came from trades into construction. I think that technical schools, is that the way it's done in Ireland?
No, so from my perspective, I went straight from actual high school, if you like, straight into construction without any trade. I just went in as a labourer, we would call them, or general operative. And then, it was only a matter of weeks, and I got the tap on the shoulder to say, no, you're actually health and safety. And when you think about it now, like, I'm a very big advocate for people that they need to have the proper training to be health and safety, because it's such a valued job that can give a massive impact, both negatively if it's not done right, and positively if it is done right. And that's, I suppose, back to the book, workplace safety on a budget. Was I wanted to write that book to show people that health and safety doesn't have to cost much in order to be done right. And all of the techniques and tricks that I've learned through my 25 years experience in health and safety are in the book to help people that might be a smaller company looking to try and comply with safety, but just maybe haven't got the big budget. But also the larger companies where they're probably overspending on safety, and they can maybe pare back some of that safety and reinvest it in a smart way.
So as I hear you say that, Gavin, I can hear some of safety professionals just being aghast that you would say you
Yeah,
can spend too much on safety. Like there should be. I've
yeah,
heard this, and so I'm just saying this. I'm repeating what I've heard. There should be
yeah,
no budget for safety. We should be able to spend any amount of money we need to be safe. And
yeah.
tell us why that's not practical.
Well, I suppose let me tell you about a case study that so I talk about the business of safety, and I want people to think about safety as not just a compliance center, but a business profit center. And you know, health and safety, you probably say, what are we in 2024, heading for 2025? We're probably looking at 50 years of safety where not much trending has changed in terms of accidents and fatalities, catastrophic events, like we've planes falling out of the sky to even to this day, in terms of the aviation industry and stuff like that. So, like, my pessimistic view is not really, the systems, and a lot of this. There is a lot of work on into the system side of things, but we're still having the same problems, and we're still hurting people. So why is that not getting fixed? And you know, I want to people to think about how do we get the conversations of health and safety into the boardroom, so that the leadership guys can actually start saying, hold on, we need safety at the board level, because it has a very meaningful purpose within the company. And that's not just about keeping people safe, but it's also actually making money for our business. And I think that turns the whole mantra of health and safety on its head for me, because it is new thinking, and people are just going to have to change the way we view safety, and this is the way I believe they should change it. And they use that model with a company that was a 50 million turnover business. When I went and spoke to all of their guys, their operation guys, construction and telecoms, they were telling me that they were employed to be overhead line workers, when in fact, when I met them, they were in trenches. So I said, like, well, how do you square this for me? How did this happen? And they said, well, company came to us and said, we've won a government contract, we've got 25 years framework, we're going to pay you more, but we don't want you on the poles anymore. You're going to have to go into this trench work, but your mortgages are going to be safe, your families are going to be safe, you're going to earn more money, and the job isn't as technical as what you're used to. So I said, of course we took the job. So with that, I looked at a model and said to the owners of the business, I want you to consider bringing in an outside contractor who niches in this area of doing this trench work. I said, you've got all the time recorded, you've got all the materials recorded, all the gaps it takes in order to deliver this project. So in putting together a tender package, you'll know exactly how much this job costs, and therefore you'll see a margin for yourself in it. It took me 4 months to convince them that that was a good idea, because the biggest bias that they had, Brian, was we don't want to bring another company to the table that exposes them to our client base, and therefore the clients might actually start working with that company and not giving us any more work. And of course, my natural reaction to that was, if you're good enough for what you do, the client will always keep coming back to you. And they didn't trust themselves enough that, they had all the core expertise. That small company, it could take them 50, 60 years to get to the size of this company. And so eventually we got sign off. And once we got sign off, it was just like switching a light bulb on in that company, because they'd been so institutionalized to the way of thinking. And so all of the guys came out of the trenches. They got a really good small contractor to come in to do this work that they didn't have to manage that much, because they knew exactly what they were doing. They were safe and they were making money. So the guys then were able to go back to their existing clients and say, hey, all those projects that you have like out the next year and the year after, pull them back in, because we've now got the resources to go up on the poles and deliver that work for you. So the directors, even today, have come back to me and were like, well over $1 million, Gavin, that decision was that we made in terms of, the switch, just an organizational switch, but it was a safety-led switch. Now, that's a high-level sort of case study, but you can break it down into every department within every business has some element of safety. Design has a safety element. Procurement has a safety element. HR has a safety element. And so get a spreadsheet together and start looking at the safety inputs and outputs and the cost value. And are you actually making money on that? And is there a value to it? And speak to your workers and say, okay, we're doing this. Are we doing it the right way? Well, if we bought better gloves, they'll last longer and you wouldn't have to be spending as much on gloves. And that's a very, menial type of discussion, but down to that level, that's what I'm talking about. And then what I want owners to think about is, okay, here's your profit back, but I also want to keep some of this money because I want you to buy better work equipment or machinery. I want you to buy, better PPE, or I want you to pay people more money so you attract better people into the company. And that's why I talk about the business of safety.
And it's such a great business case, all the expenses associated. A safe job is an efficient job. And then to bring out someone from the outside to look in to see the value in a niche partner, because the hazards associated with high work And even the skills of those people doing that high work are different than the trenches and the underground work, because
Right.
when you're doing the elevated work, now you got fall risk, you got heights, you got probably higher transmission, all kind of different variables there. And then when you get into trench work, now you're talking about trench caving in. You got to have all these different procedures for shoring, which maybe the high contractor or the elevated work contractor is not aware of and is not proficient in like the other
Yeah.
contractor is. So great example of how to use safety and use an outside party to actually think outside the box for you.
Yeah. No, it verified my own mindset in regards to that model. And if, for your listeners, like, yes, I have been sort of called out, if you like, how can you put, you know, a discussion on the table to talk about cost and safety in the same sentence? And if we don't have smart departments delivering profit and value and also its main function or its core function, what are we doing? Like, and that's just safety. And, you can bring that into any other department as well. But like safety in particular is usually seen as a bolt on or as an external function that just plugs in. Get that out of there, put it into the central nucleus of the whole company, and let all boats float together. There should be no isolated part of your company. Your company should be integrated entirely.
That's really good. And when you think about the value of safety, the business proposition of safety, and I think your book will do that. When we finish the podcast, I'll ask you to tell my listeners where they can get a copy of that. Before we do
Yeah,
that, I want to ask you about your podcast,
yeah,
I'm the Gaffer. And I had to look up what Gaffer was this morning because I didn't know. So if you'll share with our
yeah.
listeners, number one, what is Gaffer? And then tell us about your podcast.
So gaffer has two meanings in Europe. For anybody that follows football or soccer, uh, the manager of the team will be known as the gaffer. That's just kind of a slang word. But in the construction industry in Europe, the gaffer is the boss. He's everything. He or she is the accountant, the procurement manager, the health and safety manager, the operations manager. He's just everything, or she's just everything. So I'm the gaffer is like, you are the boss. And the podcast is aimed at small to medium enterprise construction owners who became fantastic tradespeople first and maybe average or, not up to speed business persons second. And what we try to do is we try to bring on construction leaders, innovators in the space, people that have made impacts and can make a difference to share some nuggets of wealth in terms of knowledge to give back to these guys because they don't have much time. They don't have the space or the capacity to go back to college or maybe never went to college. And so if they're, driving home in the truck or the van on the way home from a work site or driving to the work site in the morning, they put on the podcast and they go, oh my God, I need to do that. I'm not doing enough of that. Or maybe I'm doing that, but I need to do more of that. So it's verification. And so it's very fluid in terms of the conversation. We don't have, it's not scripted. It's very conversational, and we've had some amazing guests on who the value add to people. Like it's like a little academy for any construction owners.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to a weekly or monthly podcast, you can gain so much information, like going to school, learning from
Yeah,
different people. I learned so much by interviewing guests, as I'm sure you do as well. So I would
yeah,
encourage my listeners, go over and listen to I'm the Gaffer podcast and hear what Gavin shares and the people he brings to his podcast, what they're sharing about our construction industry. I like Gavin. I started straight out of high school. I tell everyone I was looking for a job and I stumbled on a very rewarding career, met some amazing people and got some amazing opportunities in the construction industry. So can't say enough about the greatness. And it sounds like it's worldwide. The construction
it is.
industry
Yeah,
is just amazing. So Gavin, with that, if you will, tell our guests where they can find your book and then where they can find you on social media.
So my book is on Amazon. So Amazon.com, Workplace Safety on a Budget by Gavin Coyle. To contact me, regardless of where you are in the world, safety does travel, and I'm happy to help people. I'm happy to talk to people if they've got challenges. Uh, it's not about money. It's about giving the knowledge out there to help people to succeed in their business. Um, LinkedIn profile is Gavin Coyle. I have a website called gavin-coyle.com, which you can download free safety courses for your staff, free safety documentation for your construction business. There's no sign up for credit cards. It's just your email address, and then you'll be given all that documentation for free. And then on the premium side of things, Coyle-Group sends health and safety professionals all over the world to manage high risk, hyperscale projects in any part of the world.
Well, thank you for that, Gavin. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes for our listeners. I so appreciate you being a guest today. I hope the listeners will go find out more about you, LinkedIn, Amazon, and your website. I want to thank you, the listener, for listening to this podcast today. Remember to build yourself and then build others.